All right, so this is measuring gross domestic product, also known as GDP. And you're going to be able to identify the four sectors of the economy and describe what those sectors do. So we have four focus questions. First is what are the four sectors of the economy? And then two is what are consumption, investment, government purchases, export spending, and import spending. Three, how is GDP measured? And four, what is per capita gross domestic product? Our key terms are consumption, investment, government purchases, export spending, import spending. All right, so how is GDP measured? So the GDP of the United States back in 2018 was greater than $19 trillion. It's a lot of money. So economists, they determine this number by adding up the amount that is spent by four separate sectors. And those sectors are households, businesses, the government, and then what's considered to be foreign. And I want to go back. So household it's the amount of money that houses spend on anything, and that is called consumption. So if you and I buy something, it's called consumption. Businesses also spend money on things in the business sector, and these things are called an investment. Okay. The government also spends money, and when the government spends money, it's called a government purchase. Okay. Now remember, a government purchase that does not include a government transfer of payments like Social Security. Remember, you paid into Social Security, and the government at some later point is giving you that money back. That's just a transfer of payment. When they buy something, and like the example I gave was like tanks and education, stuff like that, that's a government purchase. And then foreign, this is spending by residents of another country buying stuff from us, and that's called export spending. And then there's import spending as well, which is when you and I buy stuff, but that kind of falls into the consumption or the investment. All right. So anything that's produced has to be bought by somebody in one of the four sectors. So here it is broken down again. Okay. Now foreign is separated. There's exports and imports, and I'm very confident actually that you guys know the difference between the two. All right. So the spending of the four sectors, and then you subtract the import spending. That's how you figure out what your GDP is. So you take consumption, you add the investment, you add government purchases, you add export spending, and then you subtract import spending, and that gives you whatever your GDP is. So if you were to take these numbers, right, and make this $19 trillion, what you would actually see for the U.S. economy is that 3/4 of our economy comes from us, you and me, the households, and that is because we buy stuff. And then it's followed by investment from businesses, then the government, and then other countries buying our stuff. And then you have to subtract from that all of the stuff that we buy from China, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, everywhere else, okay? So it's GDP is C plus I plus G plus EX subtract IM. That's the gross domestic product equation. All right, is every good that is produced also sold? Yes. Does that mean they actually are? No. But for economics, we got to make the assumption that anything that's produced is also sold. Okay. Otherwise, you couldn't actually figure this out right here. All right. GDP versus quality of life. So the greater production of goods and services, it's just one way to factor like how good of a life you have, how good like your well-being is. So if we look at all other things being equal, greater production may result in reduced leisure time or reduced family time. Because let's say that like in the United States, it's $19 trillion, right? How much of our time are you and I devoting to work to achieve those numbers? Okay. Are we spending 12 hours at work, 16 hours at work? That means we have less family time. And like our quality of life would kind of not be so great. All right. So you also have to consider population when you compare the GDP of two different countries. So how we do this is we figure out what's called the per capita GDP. And per capita GDP is you just take the number of the gross domestic product. So like in the United States, that's $19.36 trillion as of 2017, right? And you divide that by the population, and the United States population is estimated to be 325.7 million. So if you were to take our GDP, 19.36 trillion, then divide that by our population, that would mean that each person in the United States is the per capita would be $59,256.98 per person. Now, does everybody have that per person? No, I'm sure people would like that, but it's not how it works. So some people are worth tens of billions of dollars, and some people are worth thousands of dollars, or for nothing. So this is China this is China over here, and this is the United States. So our official exchange rate, right? So and these are 2017 numbers, but our GDP was 19.36 trillion. Theirs is 11.9 trillion. Okay. Our Here's the real GDP growth, 2.2%. Theirs is 6.8, right? So if you're looking at just percentages, China has higher growth. So does that mean that it's a better country to live in? Maybe. You look at GDP. Ours is per capita is 59,500, where in China it's 16,600. And think about that. The reason why is there's over 1 billion people in China, right? There's less than half a billion in the United States. Okay. Then you look at gross national savings. That's the amount of money that's saved out of the GDP. So the point here is like you can look at these numbers and you can make comparisons. You live in the United States, so you probably want to live in the United States. But if you were to only look at numbers, you might make a decision that this is a great place to live, China, based on its growth rate. But if you look at per person, the amount of per capita wealth that they have, 16,600, is significantly less than a person in the United States. Again, this is only part of the equation. This is just the economic side. This isn't talking about like religious freedoms or political freedoms or anything else. But all right. So question one, suppose country X has a GDP that is 3 times larger than that of country Y. Are the people in country X better off than the people in country Y? Well, I mean, they could be, but you can't just use GDP as the only factor. The question, while it looks simple, is more complex than that. Question 2, you go to Walmart and purchase a new flat screen television. What category of GDP would this be? Well, it's you or me, right? We're households, so that's consumption. The Pentagon orders 1,000 new M1A1 Abrams battle tanks for the U.S. Army. What category of GDP would this be? Well, this would be government spending. Okay. Oetikers Incorporated, it's just like a little local manufacturing company. They double the size of the plant in Davison, filling it with machinery. What category of GDP would this be? So this is business, and this is an investment. Buying these machines is an investment. Braden decides the time has come to buy a vehicle to go with his new driving license. So his parents purchase him an Audi R8 V10. What part of the GDP would this be? Okay, so it's consumption. And then you can watch this video on productivity and growth from it's a crash course. I'm not going to watch it with you though. And that's it. Okay, easy peasy. Thanks, guys.